That radio chick Cheryl Lee here. Welcome to the Still Rocking It podcast, where we'll have music, news reviews and interviews with some of our favourite Australian musicians and artists. We're talking to Mark Seymour today of Hunters and Collectors fame. We reflect on the release of his latest album, The Boxer, after separating from his wife of 29 years and moving from tranquil Mornington to inner city Fitzroy. When Mark began writing, it came to him quite quickly. And he says the idea of going back to really look at where I was in my life was something that I wasn't expecting to do at the age that I'm at. He said he just assumed that as you got older, you kind of keep your bullshit to yourself. But bullshit is too strong, filled with too much meaning and had too loud of a voice not to be heard. So the so-called bullshit made it to the album, and he ended up writing a lot of very personal songs. To catch up on podcasts from other favourite artists, simply go to thatradiochick.com.au. You're with Cheryl Lee, and I'd like to welcome into the studio today Mark Seymour from Mark Seymour and The Undertow. Welcome back, Mark.
Hi, Cheryl. How are you going?
Well, thank you. We spoke about this time last year. You were preparing to launch your new album, The Boxer, which you did on April 19 and performed it in its entirety at the Brunswick Ballroom. How was it playing all that new music?
Well, that was pretty special that night. We had our keyboard player with us, Cameron Bruce, and pretty much did it, top to bottom, exactly as it tracks on the record. It's a very exciting, dynamic album. We recorded it very quickly. It covers a lot of terrain, a lot of personal stuff. It's very autobiographical. And it was a great room, a really, really fantastic room. It's a real music room, It's probably Melbourne's premier room, really.
What a great way to kick it off. And congratulations. Straight to number one with a bullet on the ARIA charts. Well done.
Yeah, that was a bit of a surprise, I have to say.
You must be pretty proud of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've never had that happen. Like, my relationship with ARIA is fairly mixed.
Yeah.
I don't really have much to do with ARIA, really. But, yeah, getting that number one was quite special, really.
Congratulations. There's a couple of singles released from The Boxer, the title track. This is based on a real-life person, isn't it? During the pandemic, you were training with a female boxer.
Yeah, Tiffany Cook. She approached me a while ago to do a podcast, like a long time ago. I think it was just coming out of the last lockdown, and she'd seen that I had a bag in my garage and reacted to that and said, "Oh, do you want to train with me?" So I actually established a pretty long-term gym relationship with Tiffany. And she sort of alluded to her story, her life story, as you do when you're just sort of doing that stuff. You kind of talk about, things come up in training.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I basically just paraphrased, really. I didn't tell her. I thought that's a really interesting story, She had a really interesting story, so I basically, I plundered her life, really.
You pinched it.
Yeah, it's like, well, that's the thing about the songwriting. You can use create a character in the song, borrowing from things that people say to you, and it doesn't necessarily reflect on the exact detail. It just kind of suggests something about somebody in it going through some personal struggle.
Yeah.
And it's a really good way to connect with people, because people find that core sense of feeling that those lyrics that allude to, and they relate better. If I can pull that off, it's a bit of a trick, but I find if I can pull it off successfully, people really relate to the song, which is kind of the whole point of the exercise.
Yeah, and it's really interesting where the inspiration for songs and an album can come from, right out of left field and out of your life.
That's right, yeah. Sometimes it's events that I go through directly, or I cross paths with other people, I don't necessarily get to know them particularly well, but they might just tell me something about what they're going through, or something they felt a long time ago. And there's always something personal in every song I do, right?
Yeah.
I'm sort of coming from two places at once, really. If I can relate to what the person's telling me on a personal level, it's more than likely going to interest me as a potential way of writing a song.
You are listening to Still Rocking It, the podcast with Cheryl Lee.
Let's hear that song now, the title track from the Boxer album, number one with a bullet. Do yourselves a favour. We're back to speak to Mark Seymour from The Undertow and Hunters and Collectors straight after this.
Just gotta do what it does, gotta do.
songs can be very therapeutic too, you know.
Absolutely. And you're pretty good at writing songs now. Is this your 11th solo studio album? That's a pretty large body of work.
Yeah, I've stopped counting, really. Yeah, it's interesting because I'm actually at the moment writing something about songwriting, developing my skills. I mean, I used to sort of, in the early days of Hunters and Collectors, I would just pretty much just react to what was in the room. It was pretty much an open table, you know. I would sometimes arrive with a riff or a lyric. Other times I had nothing and somebody would suggest something and I might have words with me. But I've always sort of been looking for that sort of magic still point. But the process has changed. I'm always reacting to circumstance, pretty much.
Yeah. And I think that's why people do connect to your songs and to your lyrics, because it's real life and it's personal and it's real.
Well, it sort of depends on... It is real. Yeah, the emotion is real. There's no doubt about that. I mean, you've got to be really discreet with your language. I mean, you have to kind of find the right words. You know, and I do spend quite a bit of time sifting through lines. But you can always tell if someone's coming from a genuine, that the words are genuinely felt. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the other songs from the album that I liked, because I saw you perform it on telly on the front bar. You're clearly a Bulldogs supporter. A great song, Stars of Fitzroy, about the suburb that, you know, lots of your family grew up in.
Yeah. Well, that's something that I didn't kind of connect with particularly. I'd moved to Fitzroy. Well, actually, the really weird thing was I hadn't actually moved there, but I'd sort of made my mind up months in advance that I was going to leave. I was separating from my wife. Eventually, we both started looking around for alternative places to live.
Yep.
And I hadn't really decided. I realised much later, unconsciously, that I'd decided I wanted to live there. I remember telling my sister, I'm moving to Fitzroy. And she just said, well, Mum's, Dad's family come from there, like 2 generations back.
Yeah.
You know, it was originally an old working class suburb. It was an industrial suburb. And it's got, you know, all these incredibly old, you know, it's kind of a bit like Semaphore.
Yeah.
You know,
old
it's
buildings,
got this sort
history.
Yeah, a lot of it. And a lot of it's National Trust.
Beautiful.
You know, these very old, funny, like mid-19th century factory buildings that have been converted into residences. But and all the streets are really narrow. It's a very small suburb. It's tiny, Fitzroy.
Yes, it is.
Really tiny little place. But anyway, her comment really triggered me. And I thought, that's a really interesting idea for a song.
I saw you perform that song with one of your daughters, Eva. She's a beautiful girl and a beautiful singer. And does Hannah sing also?
Yes, she does, yeah.
You were pretty on the money. I don't know if you remember this, but you thought that the Bulldogs would finish just in the top 8, and they're 7th.
Did I say that? Oh, yeah.
Well done. I'm a Richmond supporter, so I actually don't want to talk about the footy. We're buying for the wooden spoon.
Yeah, it's an interesting season because there's been a lot of draws. No one's really clocking that. There's a whole lot of confusion about ladder placement because there's been all these draws this season. There's been half a dozen of them.
Yeah, which is quite unusual. You sometimes don't get any, or you get 1 or maybe 2 at the most.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so our spot's kind of, I think we're pretty safe now that we'll be in there. I think we'll finish in the top 8, but a lot of teams are staying, like Geelong, you know, like, God, I just wish they'd go away.
Yeah. Oh, well, you were on the money. I'm, of course, at the bottom of the footy tipping because I tip with my heart, not my head. Still Rockin' It podcast with that radio chick, Cheryl Lee. I think we should hear that song now, The Stars of Fitzroy, another single from the album The Boxer, from Mark Seymour and The Undertow. But before we do, just got to say, go the Mighty Tigers. Back to speak to Mark again after this.
We're gonna drive all night, everything's gonna be alright, under the stars of Fitzroy.
What we also want to talk about today, because I believe you and I are both Monday virgins, and both of us are off to Monday very shortly.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
So this is the fourth one.
Yeah. We've only done 2. We did Birdsville.
Yeah, the Big Red Bash.
And we're doing this one on the 15th.
The Big Red Bash is the sister festival to this one. You did the Big Red Bash in 2017, right?
Oh, yeah, did. Yes, with James Rain.
What's it like? What do we expect?
Well, it looks like it's right out you got to drive right out into the desert.
Yeah.
And, there's thousands and thousands of recreational vehicles, like, cross-country four-wheel drives. It's like massive tent city.
Yeah.
Drop toilets.
Oh, God.
Massive. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands of, like, all ages, and a lot of international tourists as well, which is quite interesting.
So you're looking forward to it?
Oh, yeah. It's great fun.
Apart from 3 days of music and mayhem, there's a lot of fundraising activities and events. Do you get involved in like the Undie Run and the Beyond Blue Day, or do you just sort of sing and make music?
I've actually read about that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's very much a community-driven thing. I mean, it depends on what happens on the day. We get there and we see what we've got time for. You get in there and you've got to kind of get stuck into production pretty much straight away.
And rehearsing. I've watched it on social media the last few years with FOMO. So hubby and I are off in a Winnebago, so we'll see you there. We'll see you down the front.
Okay. Cool. Nice work.
I'll give you a wave. And I've warned my friends,
excellent.
if they see smoke signals, to send a helicopter and chopper me out of there.
No, you'll have a great time.
I'm a 5-star traveller. But anyway, we're really, really looking forward to your set. You staying for the whole 3 days?
No. No, we're heading out. I think we're heading out that night.
You're FIFO, are you? Flying in, flying out?
Yeah, flying in, exactly, yeah.
If we have the opportunity, I'd love to grab a 2-second soundbite from you then, just to see how you're enjoying it to play when I get back. But we'll see how we go. All the best, safe travels. We're looking forward to the next thing from Mark Seymour. Did I hear a rumour that there is another album in the pipeline in the future?
Well, the next move's going to be an anthology where we're going to basically put together a pretty, like a 3-album compilation record of material from a long way back, right up to the present day. That's the next move.
Awesome. So like the history.
Pretty much.
From where to go.
Yeah.
We'll look forward to the launch of that. We look forward to seeing you at Monday. Thank you very much, Mark, for talking to us today. I know you're a pretty busy fella, so we appreciate your time.
Thank you, Cheryl.
You are listening to Still Rocking It, the podcast with Cheryl Lee.
Cut is the 7th studio album by Hunters and Collectors, issued on the white label by Mushroom in 1992. Reached number 6 on the ARIA albums chart. The band were nominated for Best Group at the ARIA Awards and Album of the Year for Cut the following year. Releases a single from that album, Where Do You Go? You're with Cheryl Lee, that radio chick. Thank you so much for joining me on the Still Rocking It podcast. Hope to catch you again next time. Get out when you can, support Aussie music, and I'll see you down the front.